Welcome to Shed Talks. I'm your host for today, Bob. Our topic today is interactions, active versus passive. Cameron, what do you think active interactions are?
Well, I think active interactions are anything like you play and it immediately does a thing. So like a Swords to Plowshares or an Unsummon.
ETB, instance,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Kyle, what do you think passive interactions are?
Passive interaction would be something that just stays on the battlefield, or stays in some sort, and just has an effect that either keeps people from doing playing cards or makes them question their decisions before they make them.
So tax and stacks.
In a way, yeah.
I like that.
I prefer to call them passive interactions.
That's very long and complicated. Let's just stick with tax and stacks.
Okay.
That sounds so cool.
I don't think so.
I think there can be effects that are not stacks, but still passively interacting with players.
I'm just using it as a description. I'm not saying all passives are stacks or tax.
Okay.
Just like when I said ETBs or instance with Cameron.
Because you can get like...
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was just using like a broad term of like stacks and tax.
Like it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not exclusively.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
yeah.
I'm just giving like a broad example.
I think
to like
I think the point that really came up is anything that affects their decision making that's on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Like that is an important piece of being passive.
Well, yeah, tax would affect their decision.
I'm
just
not
being-
arguing with you on this.
I understand. I'm just using it as more of a descriptive
Sound
term.
like arguing, but continue.
We will.
Active interaction cards. I personally like Swords to Plowshares. Simple, you get what you pay for, no tricks here. One white, it removes a boy. They gain some life, but it's more about saving you life.
No, it's solid. Like it's strict instant targeted removal. It's probably not absent in any white commander deck. Like there's no argument or disagreement. I think it's probably
Good white staple.
just
also
about
cheap.
the top of the heap.
Yeah. It's also got a kissing cousin in Path to Exile, which is... so do you, when you run Swords to Plowshares, do you run both? Are they both required, or do you like to run one over the other?
So naturally, when I'm getting into the cut, I prefer Swords over Path, because them gaining life, I think, is more manageable than ramping them a card. I feel that there's no scenario where, like, man, I really need more life, otherwise I can't play this game anymore. As opposed to, I'm stuck on 3 lands, I'm not going to help you get unstuck.
So for, like, let's say competitive Commander, which one do you like more? Because, like, in competitive Commander, a lot of times they don't run basics. Like, a lot of basics never get really played in competitive Commander. So Path to Exile gets better. But is it a situation where you run both at that point? Or, like, when you have the option to run both, do you run both, or do you
Yes.
just run one?
No, absolutely. Both is always great. If I have to choose one, I prefer Swords over Path. Kyle, what about you?
I'm the next one because I'm the oddball one every time. I guarantee you.
Okay, Cameron,
So
what about you?
Well, my piece of interaction is actually kind of like one of my favorites. It's Red Elemental Blast. It's 1 red to counter a blue spell or destroy a blue permanent. And most of the time when you run this spell, nobody really sees it coming in red. And I cannot count how many times like I have won the game because I've Red Elemental Blasted or Pyroblasted, which is its kissing cousin. A spell or a permanent or anything like that. Like, and when you have both, you can just double up counter spells in red, which always throws blue players.
So I'll throw the same question to you that you threw to me. Do you prefer one over the other? Or both when applicable?
Always both.
Always
I never
both.
run one without the other because just in red, you don't have a lot of tricks to deal with blue things. And the more tricks you can run, the better the interaction. Like, you have plenty of removal pieces for, like, permanents, but spells themselves, and specifically counter spells in red, is very tough to come by.
I understand.
There's a little bit of a difference between the two. With Pyroblast, you can target any spell or any permanent with it, but it just doesn't do its thing unless it's blue.
Right.
So, like with Vile Smasher, if you just need to cast a spell to get a trigger, Pyroblast can be better. So, I think if you're just going to choose one, I think a lot of people just say, oh, they're the same card. But Pyroblast is actually different. You can actually get it out of your hand by targeting anything on the battlefield or anything on the stack with it.
Yeah, it's destroy target permanent if it's blue.
Alex, what do you think about active interactions? What's your card?
I like Baleful Mastery for removal. So like the black version of your Swords to Plowshares. And I like Baleful Mastery because you can be greedy with it later in the game and not have an opponent draw a card. It costs 4 mana though, right? But the draw a card part can be useful. There's a lot of utility with it.
You can make deals with other players.
There's the political part of it, right? So, hey, I'm going to get rid of this, and I could get a favor from Kyle if I let him draw the card, because if I kill Bob's creature, I don't have to pick Bob to draw the card. The other thing, it is defensive against Thoracle combos, because Thoracle will just dump their library and they'll have no library there, and they'll have a Thoracle in play. So they're going to have a creature in play. So you can just kill the Thoracle player while that triggers on the stack. You can say, okay, I'll Baleful Mastery for the reduced cost. The Thoracle player, draw a card now that they just dumped their library.
It's a good counter to a popular combo.
Yeah. Most popular, some would say, is
Yeah.
Thoracle.
It's
It's super easy to play.
Also,
runs in mini.
Yeah, it's very hard to counter.
It's also, it goes against Planeswalkers, and for the same reasons. Like having a mode that kills a creature and a Planeswalker, so a different permanent type, is always more beneficial than something that just kills creatures.
Ruben,
So for me, it's Strip Mine.
Strip Mine.
Because I run to a lot of lands that stop me, like Maze of It, Glacial Chasm, Dark Depth. And I don't think there's a lot of removal for lands in general. And you can put your on any deck. It's colorless.
Yep.
Then you pair with Crucible Worlds or Radio Power Excavator or any recursion. You can kind of shut someone down for the whole game.
You're making the Windgrace and Muldrotha players at this table very happy to bring a recursion.
Well, I play a Ragavan. I got to play it at 1v1 competitively. And I got to do that twice where I went Crucible turn 1, Strip Mine someone, all their whole land base. Because as any land, I'm going to just target non-basics, like with Dustbowl or Wasteland. So I can just cripple someone for a whole game.
Well, in 1v1, that's a free win.
Yeah, it's
that's
free
why
win.
you run. That's why
Exactly.
every 1v1 deck
So
runs
do you-
Crucible and Strip Mine. Yeah.
So do you only run Strip Mine in a competitive sense, or do you run it casually as well?
So I run it in, my casual decks are aggressive. So I run Raptors Aggro. I have it in there for Glacial Chasm. So I know in our play group, we do see a lot of them.
Yeah.
Or Maze of It also. It's just things that stop me from either dealing damage or attacking somebody.
Well, there is that whole unspoken rule of commander casual, which is where you don't touch lands unless you absolutely need to.
Well, yeah. If I need to win the game, or a Rogue's Passage.
Yeah.
There are all these lands that do things that are just making mana. Like a Dark Depth. If I see a Dark Depth, I don't want that thing to become a 20/20.
I
That's scary.
think Strip Mine as being that unspoken rule of Commander is that you don't play land destruction because that's just a turd way to play. Having one card to deal with, like you said, Rogue's Passage, Dark Depths,
Field of the
Glacial
Dead.
Chasm,
Field of the Dead.
Those
Unfair lands.
the lands that make people want to run land destruction.
Yeah.
Having one or two answers in your deck between Strip Mine or Wasteland is. It feels like it's the exception to that rule.
The whole deck's not based on it, but it's
Just
nice to
having
have
that
answers. Yeah, exactly.
I actually had another kissing cousin to Strip Mine of a Field of Ruin.
Mm-hmm.
Because Field of Ruin, it can deal with pesky lands, right? But you can also use it as a political element where you're going to ramp two other people for free, basically.
I've got a kissing cousin to that one, which is Ghost Quarters, which is the same thing, except you blow up a thing and they get it. But you can use that to oh man, I got to fix your colors for you so you can do something next turn.
For me, I'm really surprised you guys didn't say it. My backup to say was Wear and Tear because of this, but what I'm going to go with is Beast Within.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised I went through 5 people and no one had said just straight up instant speed, monocolor, permanent removal. It's anything on the battlefield is now a 3/3 trashy guy.
Yeah.
I can't think of a game that I played where it's oh man, I could have won if they didn't have that 3/3 beast token.
Well, it's
Like-
not just the fact that you're giving them a 3/3 beast token. Like, you can give them a blocker. Like, there's another way to use it politically. Like, oh man, he's swinging at lethal for you. Well, I'm going to blow up this thing that's inconsequential to you to give you a blocker to keep you in the game, and maybe we can rally ourselves to get... Like, there's
Like
other
low
modes to
political
it.
elements, or like your own stuff too.
Yeah,
I guess
like,
Beast
I need
Within
one.
and Generous Gift go hand in hand.
Yeah,
in
it's
this.
Generous Gift is its color shifted counterpart.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a good mention. I mean, it's got tons of uses. It's like, oh man, that's a really bad land you've got there, Beast Within. Oh man, that's a really bad
Yeah.
enchantment you've got there, Beast Within.
Yeah, it's-
permanent.
I mean,
Yeah.
Planeswalker, like
Everything.
it's offensive and defensive in certain ways. Like, because I've used a Beast Within to get me enough power on the board to kill somebody.
and
Yeah.
from playing green in Commander before that card existed. Holy crap! Did that change the nature of the game?
What was
Because
it,
green
Desert
did
Storm
not.
or
When you had
Bramble
naturalize, Bramble Crush.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like that's
Right.
that's what you had to resort to.
But you
Is
can't
like
get a
6
land with
mana.
Bramble.
Yeah,
Bramble
you can't.
Crush,
Like,
yeah.
it's-
Yeah. No, and then instant speed. Like
Yeah.
Beast Within just change. It changes the feel. Like if you're playing against someone who's got a green and an ancient tomb open, it's a thought in your head.
That's
like
true.
It's also like the mana cost of it being at 3 is way more important than people realize, because 3 is a nice sweet spot where you can cast it turn 2 if you have an ancient tomb, like you were saying, or like
An elf.
an elf or
Soul
something.
Ring.
Anything like that. Like being at if it was at 4, it would be infinitely worse.
It's true. Yeah, and there's a sneaky aspect of it too. It's like I've got a land, 3 land open, and this inconsequential artifact, and you swing at me with your 2/2 commander. Guess what? He's dead now.
Yeah.
You know. Now look at me. I've got a 3/3 blocker, and I just sent your commander back to the zone.
I mean, sometimes it's an upgrade. My 1/1 insect is now a 3/3.
It's true. Well, let's move over into passive. Passive interactions. Mine, propaganda. Super simple. 2 and a blue means you can't attack me. You gotta pay 2. Nobody wants to pay the 2. You know, how often do people go, I want to pay the 2 and swing at you? Never.
you know, there's a card that's like propaganda.
Ghostly Prison. It's a really good card too.
Yeah. When you can pronounce it correctly, it's the best card.
Ghost Quarter, or not Ghost Quarter, I'm sorry, cut that. Ghost Prison. My card is propaganda. Right.
You did it, Kyle. You did it. So you would call that passive interaction
Yeah.
because it doesn't actively mess with anybody.
Yeah.
It just kind of sits there. And then
I
why
think
wouldn't it be stacks, I guess? Why wouldn't it be stacks?
I mean, it could fall under stacks as well.
Okay.
You're staxing an attack or taxing an attack. But
Okay,
it's more or less, I throw it out there, nobody feels targeted.
Right.
I don't have to do anything. It just makes it so that you can't do something to me without paying extra. I would classify it as tax if I were to split it, down that way. It is passive interaction. It's a tax on your attacking me, and very few people want to do that because it's how often do you want to spend your mana to just attack someone?
It's also like a card that scales. It gets better as the game goes along because they have more creatures, which means they have to pay more mana to attack you. And like anything that scales is usually just really good.
9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, I'm not going to attack you until I can get some sort of removal for that. So it's more or less just pay 3 and they're not going to attack you regardless. Unless they're playing Voltron, which is, I'll pay 2 and swing at you, my big boy.
Goblin decks just have problems with Ghostly Prison and Propaganda for
any,
very
any
reason.
kind of go wide.
Yeah, go wide.
Yeah.
Go wide gets shut down real hard by it. And at the worst, like Ghostly Prison and Propaganda, they eat up a removal spell. Like most of the time, people have to get that to get to you. So in a way, you shielded yourself from removal that could remove one of your better pieces.
Cameron.
Oh, so my passive interaction piece is actually one of the commanders I play, which is Brina the Demagogue. And basically she says, if you attack an opponent who has lower health than another of your opponents, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, and then draw a card. And this works for your opponents as well. She really dissuades people from attacking you because they don't get the draw a card benefit. And if there's one thing that Magic players love, it's drawing cards.
It's
And
pretty good.
it's really good. It's like the best thing. I think we all try to do it. But like anything.
It's a card game, right?
It is a card game, and
Okay.
drawing cards
Yeah.
is important. And there's a weird kung fu she does where she's like, okay, like I'll just make my guys bigger, but you can like just go over here, draw a card, right over here.
I can't say how much I've loved and hated so many games with Brina, where Brina hits the table, and then the next turn she swings at somebody for 7.
Yeah.
Where because everybody is just all over
Yeah.
drawing cards, and then we all miss the fact that Brina's just all of a sudden huge
Big
and
bird.
unstoppable.
So bringing it back to Alex's, would you consider this to be a stacks piece or a tax piece?
It doesn't prevent anybody from doing anything. It's I think a different category of passive interaction where it incentivizes actions towards other players.
So you'd say neither stacks nor tax.
No, because it doesn't make it harder for them to play the game, and it doesn't make it harder. It just doesn't make it harder for them to play the game. Which is
Yeah, so I think to your categories, I think there is stacks, I think there's tax, but I think there is this passive interaction where the card just sits there and it affects the game, but not actively, right?
So what would you call that? Like maybe a
I think it's
diplomatic?
passive interaction.
I think it is literally the definition of passive interaction. It's
Yeah.
interaction that I have to do nothing for, and you guys can just fight amongst yourselves. As I
Yeah,
get
you're
larger.
influencing maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to, but I like passive interaction better. But
Maybe
you're,
like
you're
a-
influencing the game in some way or giving incentives. Yeah.
Like a diplomatic
Yeah.
interaction.
Like me and Alex both have Brina builds, and we often confer on it whenever there's a new card that's just like that doesn't fit into a stacks piece. It doesn't fit into like a tax piece. It's just like it's Brina. It's Brina tools.
Maybe
I have-
politics.
I have Brina
Yeah, I
in
think politics is a
Fishing,
lot better.
Yeah,
because what's better than Brina triggering twice?
It's always good. Alex, what about you?
Glacial Chasm. So it's a land. It just comes into play. You have to sacrifice one of your own lands, but it just sits there. And like we were saying earlier, a lot of people don't play land destruction because of reasons. It's poo-pooed upon. Yeah, or, you know, people don't like playing land destruction. So it's really hard to interact with.
I believe it was called a turn move.
yeah.
Turn move, yeah,
Don't
yeah.
be tossed.
Well, you said it just sits there. Does it not have a cumulative upkeep of paying 2 life?
It does. But if you're in... So it's colorless, obviously, so you can play it in any deck. But if you're playing green has a bunch of ways to, like, recur lands. So you could basically play it for a shield. It prevents all damage dealt to you.
Non-combat as well.
Yeah, so if someone wants to bolt you, if someone wants to Aetherflux Reservoir you for 50 damage, they
Walking
can't
Ballista.
do that. Yeah,
Ow.
it shuts all that down.
Didn't we have one of you guys in a competitive game had that moment? It was in some CEDH somewhere where it's like, if I had one more turn, I could win this game. There's nothing I have, and then they top decked their Glacial Chasm. They're like, oh my god, this gives me the turn I need, and just sat there and then rolled around and did not pay the upkeep, and then were able to swing it.
Yeah,
So that-
it works as like a time walk.
Yeah.
In a sense like that. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It also but it does have a drawback, not just the accumulative upkeep, but the fact that it can't tap for mana.
Right.
And then you have to sack a land.
Yeah,
That does have, like, there's commonly played, like, 2 cards right out of the gate that deal with that issue between Yavimaya and Urborg.
but if you're not in those colors, it's still a pretty good.
But in a 4-player game,
Yeah.
other people could
Yeah,
win those
that's
things too. So it just like makes it
But it
free
is still
mana
like a
for you. Yeah.
So you had brought it up that there's tons of green cards. So you say you run this in green decks more than other decks?
Definitely like Lord Windgrace. I will run it completely because Windgrace can just bring it back. So I could come to my turn, not pay the upkeep, goes to the bin, and then Windgrace it back. Or Life on the Loam, Ramen Excavator, Crucible World. So actually, with Crucible, it goes in any deck. That combo goes in any deck. You can
So,
just keep recurring it.
Is it an auto include in any specific kind of deck for you? So say go wide deck, do you throw it in there? Spellslinger deck, do you throw it in there?
It can go in a lot of different decks. It's pretty versatile because it is colorless. Yeah.
It does have another drawback where you can't attack with creatures as well. So you like it is great for buying you a turn, but not necessarily winning you the game or buying you several turns.
Right.
Now, where it gets best is when you don't really care about whatever those drawbacks are. Like, I don't need to attack with creatures. That's not how I win. It's like a mill deck or anything like that. So you just drop it and you're like, I'm going to sit behind this shield. I'm going to pay a life. It's fine. I gain life. That's where I think it's at its strongest is when you when your deck already naturally nullifies whatever is negative.
Well, I mean, even in a go wide deck, you don't have to pay the upkeep. So, you throw it out there and you have 6 creatures, but you need that extra turn. Then you just say, okay, you can't attack me this turn, and I'll get you on my next turn. Basically, if they were dead on the crackback, basically, it'd be a good card for that. Get you that 1 extra turn.
You can crop rotation it.
Crop rotation, yeah.
Yeah, so instant speed, all of a sudden, you just Aetherflux Reservoir and paid 50 life, and then all of a sudden I have a Glacial Chasm in play, yeah. There's also a silly combo with Glacial Chasm with Command the Dreadhorde. The way the card is worded, you make all the targets, and then Command the Dreadhorde does damage to you equal to the mana value of all the targets. So if you have Glacial Chasm in play, all that damage is just prevented. And you just pick it all.
I've got one more thing about Glacial Chasm, because it's an older card that fewer people know about, and I've always loved watching Alex play Glacial Chasm to people who don't know what it is, and then just telling everybody else who knows, just wait, let them learn.
That's neat.
He's done so many.
Well, Ruben, what about you?
So I have 2, but they're basically the same. It's not a card. It's the Monarchy and the Initiative.
Oh.
Ooh.
I like those a lot. They're basically the same. The Monarchy, if you get it, if someone deals damage to you, they get it. And I like it. It pushes aggression toward other people. See the Initiative. You can hit me. If you hit them, you can beat the king, or you go through a dungeon and get more benefits off it.
Now, naturally, you can't just play the Monarch or the Initiative. Do you have a specific card that gets you one or the other that you like?
Not really. There's a lot of cards that make you the Monarch, or a lot of cards that give you the Initiative. And if I have one I think goes good in the deck, I'll play it.
Okay.
It's like, what was it? There's the 1/3 Death Touch. Can't remember his name now. But it's playing a Pauper a whole bunch. But it's a 1/3 Death Touch. It gives you the Monarch. So you play it, then no one's going to attack you because you now have a Death Toucher. That if it dies, it's fine. You're going to take something bigger than that. Your traded is better than what you're getting.
Okay.
Do you always try to run something that gives Monarchy or Initiative?
Yes.
Huh.
Now, if you had to choose one or the other, which one's better? Is it the Monarchy or the Initiative? Because you get to see what the bonuses are with the Initiative.
I like the Initiative more. I like the big payoff of you get a free creature and it gets bigger.
You know what's so funny? I have no idea what's on the Initiative dungeon. So if you would ask me that, I'd have been Monarch, because you get a card. I don't know what I don't know what the undercity path is.
Obviously, you try and include it in any deck. Is there any deck that it goes better in for you? Is it go wide? It fits a little better in there?
Yeah, a lot of aggressive decks. If you have a deck where you can constantly apply pressure to somebody, because if you get it back from somebody, it tends to go by faster.
So I would think combat decks.
Yeah, exactly.
It would go better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, does it when you don't run go wide decks? Does it underperform and anything like that? Or I would feel that if you're in a Spellslinger deck, you get something that gives the initiative to somebody, and it kind of just draws the combat away from you as your opponents kind of trade it back and forth.
If you're playing more passive deck, more control, like combo based decks, it's like Mark's also super good there because you put aggression away from yourself and have everyone duke it out.
Isn't there like a drawback on that though initially? Because you have to become the Monarch or you have to gain the initiative, which means immediately people are like more incentivized to attack you. Initially,
the first time.
If you could do it early and just take the one little hit, hopefully that would probably be best, and then it just gets passed
also
around.
Political. Also,
you
have some. They hit me. Just don't affect my board anyway. That kind of stuff.
That's a good point. That's a good political piece too.
Yeah,
exactly. It's like you want to be the Monarch. I'll let you get through with your 1/1 if you make some deals with me. That's always good.
Bob never makes that deal. He just immediately goes, "I have the forces to overwhelm you." Gotcha.
That's not true. I absolutely play the deals sometimes.
All the deals.
Well, Kyle,
Absolutely sometimes.
absolutely sometimes.
So
100% of the time, 30% of the time, probably.
So
That's not the same.
I saved mine because I think this will be some of the most discussion about whether it is passive interaction or not, and it's Devout Chaplain.
Devout
It's
Chaplain.
a creature, 3-drop creature, white, mono white. You can tap him and 2 other humans you control to exile an artifact or enchantment. And it's at first glance, it looks active. But it's the fact that it's a body that sits in play. And so with it in play, without summoning sickness and the body's activated, there are some conditions to it, but there's a lot of humans. All of a sudden it becomes, I shouldn't play my Bull's Citadel. I shouldn't play my Aetherflux Reservoir because there is an immediate, it's gone forever.
So it's the classic scenario of, I have 60 life and an Aetherflux Reservoir. Mess with me if you dare.
No, it's not.
No.
It doesn't immediately murder you.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's the threat of activation.
Yeah.
That you're more or less talking about.
More like it's going to keep somebody from playing the card in the first place.
Yeah.
Playing those big artifact drops that get run often, or even like swords, the Bull's Citadel, Aetherflux Reservoir. My passive before I thought of this one was Norn's Annex, which is also I really like because it gives an option for the tax on it, but I feel Devout Chaplain just creates this state that puts it's the fact if it was a one-time use, if it's like a sacrifice exile thing, that's different. But the fact that every time my turn comes around, I'm ready to go on something else again, that makes people second guess their decisions to play these beefy artifacts.
I would say it's more of a stacks piece than it is. It feels like it fits more into the stacks category because you're affecting their play. Like, I'm not going to drop. Like, if I see you have stuff open, I'm not going to drop my really inexpensive artifact or my soul ring or my piece that I need to drop. So it's in a weird way it taxes them because they need to deal with the No Mage Shepherd.
I like calling it
No Mage Shepherd, the Devout Chaplain.
Devout Chaplain.
No
Mage
Shepherd?
It's one I
Is that
just
a card?
looked. Yeah, it is a card. It's one I just looked up because you reminded me of it. It's tap 4 and tap creature you control, destroy target artifact or enchantment.
See, that's the other. That's not bad. But the other side for this is the exile side of it. Sorry, you were saying.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I was just thinking. I like to call that repeated interaction. Like I just started running Royal Assassin again in my black decks. Tap, destroy a tapped creature.
It's kind of the same thought where it's like it makes like an attack, but it makes it where you really don't like being the player to the left.
Yeah, because it sits there. You know what it does. Everyone can see it, and so you either play around it or play into it, and the person with that repeated interaction can just keep going with it. Yeah.
Now, this is kind of like the Blue Mage's dilemma. It's like when you're in a commander pod and then the Blue Mage untaps with his mono blue and then just passes and then you're immediately next, you have to, you're going to catch the counter first if you do the power.
Are you saying islands are passive interaction pieces?
It might be true. Oh, that's pretty good.
That would be good.
Just the threat of it, you know, where it's like, wow, this guy's got 3 blue open. I know of a few counter spells that cost 3 blue.
Yeah.
Do I chance it and bite the bullet, or do I just wait?
Sadly, it is also in a world where that guy just is playing blue.
Yeah.
It's
and
true.
it doesn't matter if he's got any open or even any islands in play.
Yeah, because whenever anybody has 7 mana open and some of it's blue, there's always, every commander player is like, that's a Cyclonic Rift. Like, that's Cyclonic Rift mana, so I'm going to play around Cyclonic Rift. So just the specter of blue can make you stop
that's
playing.
Passive interaction right there. Yeah.
Which is why when you look at it in like CDH and competitive scenarios, blue is almost the color that's in every deck. You find very few that are not blue. You know, a lot of people will just splash blue just so they can say, now I've got counter spells.
What's that? I hear someone's horn being tooted. The black-green stick fingers competitive player.
I know.
We don't want to bring this up right now. Kyle, you don't want to talk
later
about this. That's later, where Bob reveals that he's the champion. Well, that's good cards that's been brought to us from everybody here. But what we'd like to know is, what is your favorite passive interaction and active interaction cards? Leave it in the comments below. If you like what you see, consider liking and subscribing. As always, we're the Mana Shed. See you next time.